Hi, this is Wendy from Knitters Brewing, and I'm going to help get you started with Clue 1 of Mystery Sock 10. So we are going to cast on using Judy's Magic Toe-Up Cast-On, even though we are working on the cuff. In this case, we're going to be using this cast-on as a provisional cast-on. So you need about, 8 inches or so of a tail, and you need your two ends of your needle. Now, if you're using double-pointed needles, grab 2 sticks. If you're using 2 circulars, you want one end of each needle. And if you are a magic loop person, that's how I roll, you just hold your 2 tips parallel like this. Now take your yarn and put it over the lower needle so that the short working tail, or the non-working tail, is toward the back. Then bring it around to the front. Put that shorter end over your thumb and the working end over your forefinger like this. Now we're going to alternate putting loops on the 2 needles, working back and forth. We're going to start with the top needle, and to do that one you're going to use the yarn that's over your thumb. You are going to come up through the middle between the 2 sticks and over the top. Then to do the front side, you're going to use the yarn over your finger, and you're going to go over the top of the front needle and down through the middle. And we just keep alternating that way until we have the number of stitches that we want on the needle. And in this case, we want a total of 30 or 15 on each side. So again, for the front needle, we're using the yarn in the back on your finger, comes over the top and down through the middle. For the loops on the back needle, you're using the yarn over your thumb. It's coming up through the middle and over the back. So I'm going to keep going this way until I get to the point where I have 15 on each side, and then I will come back and show you how to continue with the first row. Alright, I have cast on 15 to each side, and here was the last loop I put onto the top needle. And I almost ran out of yarn, so maybe you want to go 12 inches instead of 8. So now we're going to work the first row. And so turn your work so that your needles point to the right. And let your short tail drop. And then you're going to grab your working yarn over the top of that, and that kind of helps lock that tail in. Because now we're going to work our way across these top stitches to make our first row. And the pattern calls for, so I use magic loop, so I'm going to use my other needle. You're going to use whatever needle method you use. So our instructions call for us to knit 3 and then yarn over K2 together till we get to the end of this row. So we're going to knit 3. Keep our little tail out of the way there, and then yarn over K2 together. Now we're going to keep working the stitches that I'm working on right now, and we're going to ignore the ones that are on the other side of the needle. Those are going to be our provisional cast on that we'll come back to later. So if your other stitches are on a double pointed needle, you will probably be more comfortable if you slip them onto a stitch holder or some waste yarn. And if they are on a separate circular needle, if you use the 2 circular needle method, then you probably might also want to put them on a stitch holder or some waste yarn, just so that second needle isn't banging around while you're doing your work on these stitches. For magic loop, if you want to just leave them there and ignore them, that is fine. If not, go ahead and put them on a second needle or a stitch holder or some waste yarn. So here you can see I just worked these across the top, and these are now the provisional ones that we're going to come back to later. So we are going to keep working these, and we're going to end up with a strip. And I will stop now and show you some of that. I have done some rows here so that you can see what it is we're doing. These are my provisional stitches on this end, and I've been working back and forth this way, and I've been working through a couple of repeats of the Elizabeth's Lattice lace stitch pattern that we're using for this cuff. Now you can see it's about a 10-row repeat. Here's 1, 2, 3. I've gotten 3 repeats done, and I've started on the other. Now most of the rows are just knits and purls and yarn overs and K2 togethers, nothing too difficult. But 2 rows are used to do this overlapping lattice here in the middle. So I want to demonstrate those 2 rows. And those are rows 6 and 7 of the pattern. So for row 6, you are on the right side, and we're going to do a bunch of wrapped stitches so that it's going to create these long loops that you see here. So to do that, we start by doing a knit 1, and then we wrap 4 times around the needle, 1, 2, 3, 4, and knit 1. And we keep doing that until there are 6 stitches left on our left hand needle. Alright, and you end up with a whole bunch of loops over here. But it's not a complicated thing at all, it's just a little different than what you normally do. Alright, and I've got 3 more to do. Okay, now I have 6 stitches left, and so I'm going to finish them in the same way that the other even numbered rows are finished, which is purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 3. Alright, now for the really fun row, row 7. You start the same way that the odd rows are started, which is K3, yarn over K2 together twice. Then we are going to slip all these extra loops off the needle. So you see I've come now to where this is wrapped. Just push those off and then grab the next knit stitch and pull it out and off the needle. So we're just going to keep slipping the stitches off and grabbing, or slipping the wraps off and then grabbing the stitch that's between each of the group of wraps. And what you're going to end up with is 8 long stitches. Okay. Now you want to put them back over onto your left hand needle. I tend to do it 4 at a time, that way I can count them, just to make sure I did it right. Oops. Okay. Now what we're going to do to make that cross like that is we're going to actually cross these stitches. So what you do is you take the right hand needle, you skip over the first 4, go through 5, 6, 7, and 8, and now you're going to pull these over the top of the first 4. And sometimes it helps to kind of get your finger in the middle there, like that. And if possible, you want to try not to overlap the stitches, the long stitches, and we'll fix that when we get to it. You can see 2 of them are overlapped right there. Now, keeping them in the same order that they were in, we're going to knit those now. So I find it's easiest to just, pinch them off below the needle so that they don't slip away, and knit them. And especially that first one, you want to make sure you tighten that up pretty good after you knit the stitch. 3 and 4. So that's the first 4 that we passed over the top. Now we're going to do the second set of 4 stitches, and at this point it's a good time to just uncross those two. There we go. And then just knit the last 4. And look at that. They are crossed. And actually what happens is these 4 got captured inside the first 4. You can kind of see that. Now you'll continue with rows 8, 9, and 10 of the pattern, which are just like rows 2, 3, and then 2 again. And continue on until this has reached the length that the pattern specifies you should be at.